Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the year of 2022 from my WCEG family, myself, in the show Conversations in Education. We're glad that you are here, and we're happy to be starting another season off with WCEG Network. I am your host, Vincent Cheeks, and we have a great show for you today. We have a wonderfully talented guest on the show today. She is a Georgia native. We don't get many of those on the show. So she is a Georgia native. She is a member of the Storytellers of Georgia. She's also a member of the National Association of Black Storytellers, and she has a natural flair for storytelling. Please help me welcome Miss Brenda Griffin to the show.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Hotel.
How are you, ma'am?
I am great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, ma'am, and thank you for helping us to kick off 2022 on Conversations in Education.
Okay.
Yes. So, as I just said in your introduction, I'm sorry, and I left off a very important part of your introduction. It's Brenda Griffin, aka Queen Storyteller.
Correct.
I cannot leave that off. I'm sorry. It is an honor to have you here. Okay, so let's get started because you got a lot going on. We got a lot going on. 2022 is going to be a fantastic year.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the craziness that's still going on from the past 2 years. We're going to put our feet on the ground, firmly planted, and move forward into positivity.
Yes.
And prosperity in 2022.
Right.
Okay. So, Miss Griffin.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been telling stories, and how did you develop your natural flair for storytelling?
Well, I've had that question asked of me many times, and the best I can tell you is that I have been telling stories all of my life. But I didn't know I was telling stories. And I would sit at the breakfast table, the dinner table, and watch my relatives tell about their history, where they grew up in the country, and when they were in the army, like with my dad, when my mom grew up, their high school days, their friends, and I would watch the expressions on their faces and how they told the stories and how they eased into the stories and how they got out of the stories. And so I just watched the movement of their body language. And I guess I just picked it up. So that's how I started, and that was my flair.
Okay. So when was it that you started professional storytelling? How long has that been?
Probably not very long, really. Probably in 2016, when I was encouraged by a current storyteller, Carsey Mason, to join c.e.o Storytellers. And so it's been 2016 since I've done it professionally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a pretty long time. And so what do you think was the difference? Because you say you've been telling stories your whole life. So what was the biggest difference in just maybe talking to friends or families and telling a story and transitioning into more of a professional storytelling role?
For when I listen to family tell stories about the economy, their life experiences, their community, that was all a part of me. That was all a part of my little world. But as I grew into professional storytelling, I realized I had a global angle that I had to look at, which required research. I just couldn't go on memory. I had to research. I had to make sure if I'm telling you a story, I have to have my facts correct. Because I don't know who's sitting out in that audience, who's listening to me. If I'm telling a story about the Tuskegee Airmen, there might be one in the audience.
Oh, very valid point. That is a very valid point. And so you definitely want to know your facts and have your facts straight for the story, because you don't want to be talking about the airmen and then say something wrong and then get approached after the show with a tap on
Yes.
your
Yes. You can't make up dates. You can't make up tales about whatever you're talking about. And the other key thing is you want to know your audience.
Okay.
I wouldn't go to an elementary school to talk about the Tuskegee Airmen to a bunch of kindergartners and first graders. Right. You see what I'm saying? So the key is you have to know your audience, and you have to find a way to connect with your audience, because there's nothing like standing up there like hot air and nobody's listening.
I can only imagine that would be a horrible feeling. So you mentioned research, and just because you used the example Tuskegee Airmen, would your research be mainly computer books type research, or would it be, hey, my cousin's friend know the Tuskegee Airmen, somebody who was in the Tuskegee Airmen, let me try to contact that person and see if I can get an interview with them?
All of the above.
Okay.
And before the pandemic, I would go down to Tuskegee. I would go there and I would ask questions. I would go to the museum that they have. And it's really good when you can see them, when you can see their pictures, when you can kind of feel what they were about, right, and listen to the stories from that angle, and then put your piece together and deliver.
So you would be combining that person's perspective or their story with what you're already doing in your perspective.
Yes.
And combine the two and make it into your very own story.
Exactly. And if you have a person that has been through whatever field you're researching, it's really good if you can ask them questions and have them tell you, right, from their perspective, how the story goes, and have them edit what you think and how you perceive the story and combine the two.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. So you mentioned before a couple of times that your love of stories is drawn from family tales, community folklore, and local and global history. How do those three areas influence your storytelling and the person that you are? I'm really interested in learning about community folklore.
Well, with the community there, well, let me back up just a little bit. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. And so I was raised in an area in Atlanta called Fourth Ward. And I was born during the time of segregation. Okay. And so, there were certain places you could go and certain places you couldn't go. And in our neighborhood, we had certain characters. We had a character by the name of, her name was Susie Mitchell, and I call her Mama Susie. Now, Mama Susie was not what we would call a refined person or a very educated person. Okay. She was a loving and a kind person, and she always carried a gun in her long apron. Before there was Homeland Security, there was Mama Susie. And she took care of all of the children. You better not mess with her children. Now, her best friend, which is a story in my book, was a retired teacher from then Price High School here in Atlanta. It's now, I believe it's an elementary school. And these two, you wouldn't put them together, you would think, but they were the best friends. So I drew from them. I drew from the stories that they would tell, from the teaching experiences that Lula had, the streetwise experiences that Mama Susie had that protected us. Okay. And the folklore, some of the things that they said, we would go like, Mama Susie, for real? For real? Did that really happen? But all of that was part of community. It was part of letting me know that our stories are important and they are teaching tools.
Okay. Excellent. Sounds like Mama Susie was a great lady.
Oh, she was.
Look, my grandmother name was Susie, so you got me reminiscing over
She's
here.
got to be great.
Mama
She's got to be great.
Yeah, awesome. So I mentioned earlier that you're also known as Queen Storyteller. How did you get that pseudonym?
Actually, someone gave it to me. I used to volunteer in a local Black-owned bookstore here in Atlanta. Okay. And on various occasions, we would have book signings of different authors. And this one particular author came in and greeted me as Queen. And we just started talking. Okay. And she says, "You're a great storyteller." And she says, "You're a queen storyteller." And that's all I got.
You just took it and ran with it, huh?
I just snatched it.
Okay. And I wanted to make sure I asked that question because I didn't know if it was given to you like you just said, or if it was an accumulation of years and experience of the storytelling. But I like that. I like the fact that it was given to you by someone.
It was given to me.
Those are the best nicknames.
Yes.
Somebody else
yes.
can give you a title and you like,
yes.
Yeah, that works for me. I think
yes.
And I absolutely love it. When I saw it in your bio, I was like, that fits.
Oh, thank you.
And so you mentioned in your bio also that you like to develop stories about African and African American genres. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because growing up, I didn't get a lot of our history. And the history that I did get was wrapped in somebody else's opinion, or it was quite the fact. It was like hidden figures, it was there, but you have to research it to find out that it actually came from your heritage. Right. And I'll give you an example. When you go to Washington, D.C., you see the Washington Monument. Okay. Well, very few of us know that in Egypt, that is called a tekken. That came, and when you really look at the layout of Washington, D.C., it is built on Egyptian culture, but very few of us know it.
It is. And you're right. And I'm glad you made that point because it goes to the point that you just made about how our stories and our history and our everything really is wrapped up and usually given to us from somebody else's.
Yes.
Us.
Yes, it is. Even the writings, when we were in school, we were told that the Egyptian writings were called hieroglyphics. Right. Well, that was the Greek term for the writing. The Kemetic or the Egyptian term is the Madunet. And so it's but you have to, that's where your research has to come in, and you have to study. And as you study, what is the old saying? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when I was volunteering at the bookstore, there were so many people who came in there who were just masters at our history. And so I just kind of linked on to them. And I have one now who's a retired firefighter. I always check my facts with him. He's a native Atlantan as well, but he's a master. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You just schooled me on some stuff. Okay. What was that word? What was the word for
Medu, M-E-D-U, Netter, N-E-T-E-R, Netter, Medu Netter. Sacred writings. That's what it means. Netter.
See, I've studied ancient Egyptian history, and you just dropped a new word for me. Okay, so now you're giving me an assignment.
Something to do.
And do my research.
Yes.
So I can get more clarity on Medu Netter.
And
what that's all about. So I thank you for that.
Here
at Conversations for Education.
A good book to research on that is by Carruthers. I think it's Jacob Carruthers, and it's called Medu Netter.
Okay. I appreciate that, ma'am. I would definitely look that up. You said Carruthers?
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Carruthers. I have an assignment for the week.
Yes, you do.
Look, you're never too old to learn, and I'm
always
trying to increase my size. Okay. So thank you for that, ma'am. I appreciate that. Always a learning moment on Conversation.
Oh, yes.
And I mentioned earlier that you are a member of the Kaumba Storytellers of Georgia, as so am I, and you're also a member of the National Association of Black Storytellers. Correct. How long have you been with each organization, and what is the difference between them?
Well, I've been with Kaumba since 2016, and I haven't been with the national organization that long, maybe about 3 years. And the national organization, the difference from our organization and there, it's really not a difference. I call the National Association of Black Storytellers the mothership.
Okay.
And we fall under the mothership. We all do the same things. Our mission is basically the same, is to educate and to inform and to enlighten all people about our culture and the importance of knowing who you are. And under the national organization, you have the affiliates, which Kaumba is an affiliate throughout the United States. So that, I just refer to it as the mothership.
Okay. So would you have to, I guess, is there a pecking order? Like, would you join Kaumba first and then join the National Black, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters for me. I would think that you would join wherever you are. If you were the national organization, their headquarters is in Baltimore, so you would join that. That would be the national organization. But for me, of course, I'm in Georgia, so I would join Kaumba.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you said it was Miss Mason that encouraged you to join Kaumba?
Carsey Mason, yes.
Carsey, well, thank you, Miss Carsey Mason. And so did she just hear a story, or was it something that she felt she saw in you that she could help maximize that potential?
Well, as I mentioned before, Carsey and I belong to the same church. And sometimes my daughter does hair, and Carsey just liked the way my hair was done that particular Sunday. So one thing led to another. My daughter started to do her hair. And each time Carsey came over, we would just start talking, and I would just tell stories. Well, I didn't know I was telling stories. I was just talking. And she said, you tell really good stories. You should join Kaumba Storytellers. And I said, Kaumba, what? I didn't know what that was. So anyway, one thing led to another. So I did join. At that time, she was part of the membership chair. And and that's how it went.
Okay. So if there was anyone out there listening who may have an interest in telling some stories, or might think that's something that they want to do, but they're not really sure, is there something you can tell them that would encourage them to take a step and maybe joining Kaumba or the National Association of Black Storytellers?
I would encourage them to, wherever they are, to see if they have a local affiliate. Okay, say if they're in North Carolina, if they're in Philadelphia, or of course, if they're in Georgia, it would be Kuumba Storytellers. Just go Google Storyteller affiliates in whatever town that you're in. And most importantly, I think that we all should be aware that our stories are valuable.
Ooh. Ooh.
I think a lot of times that we have been told or it has been suggested that that's not important
Right.
because our stories don't meet someone else's standard.
Correct.
But our stories are important. And as I've mentioned before, as you research, we find out somebody really liked our stories because they took them and they made their own story.
Right. Yeah. And one of the producers pointed out when we were talking earlier about other people taking our stories and putting their spin on it. They put they put in the text. They turn our stories into lives.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they do.
And being, I guess, being the dominant members
Culture.
of the, I don't even like
I understand.
dominant in the minorities. I was trying to think of something else to say, but
yeah,
being the ones who won the war, I just put it that way.
mm-hmm.
They have that ability to take our stories, take our accomplishments, take our experience, and just sweep them under the rug or throw them together, throw them away altogether if they can. And so I think it's very important for these organizations, the Kuumba Storytellers Georgia and the National Association of Black Storytellers. I didn't realize the need and the importance of storytelling until I joined this organization, until I joined Kuumba. And I just realized, because to be perfectly honest, I thought this type of communication, oratory communication, I really thought it was a dying art form. So is that true? Is it a dying art form, or is it just people don't know what they don't know? Like, people don't know that Kuumba is there. So that's why I'm trying to give it a platform and put information out there about it. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think people don't know. And I think oratory has been put down because it has not been a written language. But when we have no excuse now. We have so many ways to research our own. We have to become critical thinkers. And when we hear things, we go investigate it and not swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. Our oral history began at the beginning of the time with the griot. And when I even think now, the griot had a remarkable memory.
Okay.
Remarkable. He did not just tell stories, he knew the history of the village.
Okay.
And he had to recite that village. And when you think about Roots and Alex Haley, how did Alex Haley find out about his history? Through one word, a river, Kambibolongo.
Okay.
And he traced it back and found the griot who told the whole story from beginning to end. So we have remarkable memories.
We do.
Remarkable memories.
We do.
But we have sometimes accepted the fact that our memory is not important, and it is.
It is. It is. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned a new a word that I'm sure some people might not know, griot.
Griots.
Can you
the griot was we are griots. You are griots. You are they're storytellers. They are the keepers of the culture.
Yes.
They are the keepers of the culture.
Okay. So they would kind of be like the village wise man.
The village wise man, even the village healer.
Okay.
Yes. So they would know. They would know all the different herbs. Like I'm sure maybe your grandma, my grandma, they knew different herbs.
Right.
And because when I grew up, we couldn't go to the doctor, you know?
Yeah.
So, but they knew what to do. They knew what to do to keep us healthy. That knowledge, somehow we have been made to feel that that is inferior. But if you are a critical thinker, you look at all the herb stores that are coming up now,
Yes.
and you look at the attack on those herb stores.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They are being attacked because they are providing a healing service that is outside of the parameters of big pharma.
Big pharma, yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
When you start cutting into the pockets of big pharma, they're going to attack whatever it is. Ask Dr. Saban, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
that's a whole nother interview.
Yeah, that's a griot that everybody that looks like us should know. Even if you don't look like us, you should know who that is. Dr. Saban. He was a griot, a shaman, a healer, all of that, until people that didn't like the truth about our story that he was telling decided to end his life. But again, like you said, that's another story. I don't want to go down that path. So, but thank you for telling everybody what a griot is. Thank you very much. We love to learn. Conversation. WCEG Network. We are here. We are learning. We're growing and evolving every day. You're listening to a wonderful griot, Miss Brenda Griffin, aka Queen Storyteller, on WCEG Network. I'm definitely enjoying sitting here at the feet of the elders and listening to you talk and hear the passion that you're talking with. I have an idea that I want to run by you later after the show, but we'll talk.
Okay.
Okay. So, got a little bit about your background, your history of storytelling, and so now you have a big production coming up, right? Give us the name of the production, please, and date and time and all the pertinent information.
Okay, I'd be happy to. The c.e.o Storytellers of Georgia is getting ready to present its 22nd annual Black History performance. It's called Historical Black Portraits. And the theme this year is the influence of African cuisine on the Americans.
Okay.
It is cited for February the 20th this year, and it's going to be a virtual event, and it's from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you go to our website, which is storytellers.org/portraits 2022, you will find all the information about it, and you will see the tellers that are going to be involved in the production. And our host, Vincent Cheeks, is one of the participants. Yay!
Yes, I am participating. I am very excited about it. It will be my third story that I'm telling with c.e.o. And I will also say it will be the story so far that has stretched me the most. I still have to do my research, like you were talking earlier. I have to do some research, and just real briefly, let the audience know, I'm going to be discussing intuitive cooking. Yes. Right? Intuitive cooking is something that I know it's akin to us in our community, because I've seen it with my mom, my aunts. You know, a lot of people in my family, they cook intuitively, and so it's a very intriguing thing for me, because we all know what intuition is, but to apply intuition to the art form of cooking, because cooking is an art form to me.
Yes.
It's another level to it. And so the name of my story, I'm just with the name of my story, is My Beef with Intuitive Cooking. My beef with intuitive
cooking.
What was the second part? Oh, the key to cooking with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
The key to cooking
Mm-hmm.
with spirit. And the website, again, where people can get information and purchase tickets is kaumbastorytellers.org/portraits.
Correct. 2022.
Portraits 2022.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So give it again. kaumbastorytellers.org/portraits 2022.
Correct.
You can find all the information, and I believe is it $10?
We're asking for a starting donation of at least 10. Yes.
Okay.
But you can give more.
You can definitely give more. You know, we're always taking donations at the Kaumba Storytellers.
Yes.
And let me just say, to self-promote and pat on my back, if you will. And we talked about this briefly before we came on air, Brenda, that I joined Kaumba Storytellers last January.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. Shout out to Mr. Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny.
And Mr. Kenny, he just asked me if it was something I wanted to do. And to be honest, at the time, it was not something that I wanted to do. But here was the thing. Mr. Kenny was such a nice gentleman. And the people that I've met in Kaumba and through Kaumba have been so genuinely nice and pleasant people. I was just like, okay, I'll join, I'll give it a shot. I'm probably not gonna, participate much because I have so many other things going on that I work on. But as soon as I joined, I just fell right in. Had my first story. No, my first event was Juneteenth, last June. And I had my first story a few weeks before that, which was a story about how my father and I rekindled.
I remember that.
20-year broken relationship. And so for me, discovering this organization has also allowed me to discover another level of creativity that I didn't even know I had.
Yes.
Just being given prompts by somebody else and say, write this, it really gets your creative juices flowing and get the wheels are turning in the brain. It's really, I'm so appreciative of the group, and I've only been in it for a year, just for making me have to dig another level of my creativity up and be able to share it with other people, because like you said, we all have a story, right?
Oh yeah, we do.
We all have a story. And just like you, I used to tell stories talking to friends and family, but just thinking I was just talking.
Yeah.
But I knew I would make people laugh and stories would be entertaining. But it was never something I thought that let me look at this as something that I could do professionally, And even what you mentioned earlier, when you said stories can be used as a teaching tool.
Yes.
I think it is an amazing teaching tool, especially for our younger generation.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm just very honored and I'm proud to be a part of this organization now.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you.
And it's just really exciting to be here. And I'm really looking forward to see how 2022 is going to unfold and what new challenges.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Vincent, and we have some amazing storytellers. And I'm always awed by what are they going to tell next, and I'm just always glued. But I'm also interested in helping people who want to tell stories but don't have a technique. Because one of the things that occurred when we were doing our stories at the Black Box Theater at the Southwest Arts Theater here in Southwest Atlanta, people would approach me and ask if we taught people how to tell stories. Well, the story has to be in you. What we can do, and what I love to do, is to teach you a technique. And using you as an example, when we were talking about our theme for this year's program, and you were having a hard time figuring out how do I do this? And you started talking about your mom. And I said, that's intuitive. She's doing that. She has that in her head. It's in her DNA.
Yes.
It's intuitive cooking. Okay. So that's where we go. We have things in us that we're not aware of. And we constantly, when we're giving opportunities to pull this out.
Right.
Because I would not, if somebody had told me, and we mentioned this before, oh, you can produce this. Produce what? What are you talking about? Just found out I could tell stories. What are you talking about? I don't know. But it's all these creative, and I like to say God-given gifts.
Yes, definitely.
It is not for us. The stories are not for us. The stories are for us to give to the next generation, to anyone who will listen. They are to create, and they are to educate, and hopefully activate somebody's spirit to go beyond where we are now.
Oh, yes. I like that. Activating spirits.
Yes, activate. Yes.
We like that. We like talking about God.
Oh, and
he appreciate it. Anytime you talk about the good Lord and bring him into the conversation, we enjoy that. All glory be to God.
Yes. Okay.
So we have the production, 22nd annual historical Black portraits, right? February 20th.
Correct.
3 to 5 p.m. I'm interested in learning, because you said this is your 4th year producing the show, right? How do you come up with the different themes for the show?
I guess it would be easy to say, well, I look in a book and I find this thing, but it doesn't happen like that with me. For instance, this particular thing, I was just looking at Netflix and I happened to see this documentary called High on the Hog. Okay. And I thought, whoa, this would be we take for granted things that we do every day as maybe as part of tradition. And then I began to thinking about critical thinking. I said, now this is stuff that we have done for years and years and years and years, but somebody else is packaging it and making bukus of money off of our soul food. So let's go back and see how this came across the water and how we were able to take these same foods and engineer them into the Americas. And I'll give you a quick example. Rice. Now, down in what we call in the South, the Low Country, South Carolina, Georgia Sea Islands, rice is very plentiful. Okay. Well, where did that come from? That came from Western Africa, Sierra Leone, to be exact. And the women did all the seeding and the harvest. Okay. The women, okay? They knew when to plant. Remember when people would say, well, you plant by the full moon and all. We don't think anything of it. Well, no, that's engineering. That's scientific stuff. It is. That we brought that with us. Yes. But somebody will say, it's no big thing. It is. We fed a whole country. So.
Yes.
We made a whole country rich. It is a big thing. It is our engineering.
Yeah.
But if we're made to think or we forget where that came from, then we think, it's no big deal.
Right. And that's
But
why
it is.
it is. And like you just said, we forget. And that's why I think it's important to have griots and to have people who are telling our stories and
Yes.
going back to before slavery, because here in America, a lot of our community thinks that our history started with slavery, and it didn't. But again, that goes back to our stories and our history being wrapped up and represented to us by someone who doesn't look like us, and most of the time back then did not have our best interests in mind.
No, they don't. They don't. And I remember a story, well, a saying, and I bet everybody's mama, grandmama, Uncle Joe had this. If you didn't do such and such right, I'm gonna send you back to Timbuktu. Remember that? I was in graduate school before the professor said something about Timbuktu, and I said, "Is that a real place?" My grandmother used to say, she said, "Girl, if you don't get in there and make up that bed right, I'm gonna put you behind back to Timbuktu." It's a real place. So then that sparked my imagination. The libraries in Timbuktu.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trade routes in Timbuktu. Man, I said, get out of here. We did all of this.
Yes, we did. And that's the stuff we need to know, because like how's the saying go? If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that's going on with our younger generation is because they don't really know their history.
Mm-hmm. You know? So our job is, now that we know better, we have to do better. It's on me. It's on me. I can't hide the things that I have been privileged to see, been privileged to study. I can't take that to the grave with me. Right. I want to leave here empty.
Right. You're absolutely right. And I want to, it's very important. I think it's a great idea. And I don't remember if it was you or if it was Miss Gwendolyn Napier who said that as important as it is for us to know our history, it's just as important for others that don't look like us to know our history also.
It was Gwen. Yeah, it was Gwen.
Yeah. So again,
it was Gwen.
Shout out to Gwen. Again, that's another reason why Kaumba and the National Association of Black Storytellers, other organizations like it, is important, because we have to have a way to filter our information to us without the outside negative influences that are generally put onto our stories. There are children in this country now that think that we have no historical contributions to the building of this country. And it's so untrue. And it's so frustrating to not know that, but it's not being taught in the traditional American education system. Because like you said earlier, some people consider our stories to not be important.
Yeah.
And our stories are just as important to any other story that has contributed to the building of this country, if not more. Yes.
And the other thing I want to mention too is that whether other people think they're important or not, if we could get our people to know that it is important, it doesn't matter what you think, it's what I know.
Right.
It's what I know. I know that I know that I know.
I know that I know.
Once you know that, you're good. You're good. It doesn't matter. I don't need your approval anymore.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. So thank you again. I'm soaking up your knowledge. I'm soaking up your energy, and I feel like I'm sitting at the foot of the elders. Being enlightened with all these great.
Well, listen, I am so honored for the opportunity, and trust me, I only know a little bit. When I sit at some of the people that I know who have traveled this world, I'm going like, oh, yeah, really? It's so much out there.
It is so much out there. And so thank you. Shout out to you. Kudos to you. Much love and respect.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Keep up the great work. I also want to shout out Mr. Kenny. Hey, Mr. Kenny, he said hi to both of us.
Hey, Kenny.
So thank you for listening. And any other Kumba members out there, shout out to all the Kumba members, man. I love y'all. I'm so glad I joined this organization. It was probably one of the best decisions of 2021 for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so we've been talking about you, Queen Storyteller, in your new role as a producer, but which one do you like more? You like producing more, or you like being the performer?
I like them both. It's not, I'm not afraid of work. I'm a worker bee. So I'll do both. But whatever I do, I was always taught by my parents to have a good work ethic. And my dad used to always tell me, never let them catch you with your work undone. And I live by that. And so I didn't know I could produce when I was asked to help out with portraits. So the more you do, and don't be afraid of walking into something that you've never done before. This is for anything, because those hidden gifts are in there and they have to be pulled out. So I enjoy producing. I enjoy the storytelling. I just enjoy it all, and I don't mind the hard work. It's a lot of work, but I don't mind it.
Okay. Well, I've seen you storytell. I'm looking forward to seeing your production come to life on February 20th.
20th. That's
February
right.
20th, 3 to 5 p.m. Correct?
3 to 5. Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so with you producing this show, past 2 years, we've been dealing with this COVID monster, this chaos. So do you find it more difficult producing your shows in person, or is it more difficult to do it virtually?
Difficult is not the word that I would use. I would find there are more challenges for me to try to take my little bag of tricks out. and there are other, and it also puts me in contact with people who can do what I can't do. And because no one person can do it all. And this is a shout out to our current president, Cheddar Galloway, and a good friend of mine who was always good at IT. I have the idea, but I can't execute it.
Mm-hmm.
On the computer, I can't do that. So I think I'm wise enough to know that I can't do everything, but we all have been gifted with different talents. So let's round it up. Okay, you do this. It's like a cake,
Right. Yeah.
You got to have all parts, all the ingredients of the cake. So I just can't be the flour. It ain't gonna taste like nothing. So we got to have everything. We got to have the eggs and the butter and the bacon, and the baking powder and all that kind of good stuff to make it all come out right. So that produces teamwork.
Yes.
So you have a team, and you find out, okay, well, I'm not really good at this, but so and so, Vincent is good at this, Kenny is good at this, Gwen is good at that. Just different people are good. So you tap into their gifts.
Yes.
Which makes us all look good. And the one thing I think sometimes we get kind of skewed is that we forget that each one of us has a gift, and we compare our gift to their gift. That's where we kind of mess up. And in my mind, there's no competition. I'm competing with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm competing with me. When I did my first production, it's got to be better. Let's go to the next level.
Right.
Let's keep going to the next level. Yeah. So when you compete with yourself, everybody wins.
Yes.
Everybody.
I like that. I like that. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so you all are listening to WCEG Network. Thank you all for tuning in. We have the wonderfully beautifully talented Miss Brenda Griffin on the show, aka Queen Storyteller. Okay, she's sitting here giving us info about her wonderful production coming up. The 22nd annual Historical Black Portraits production coming up February 20th, 2022, 3 to 5 p.m. Please go to the website, KaumbaStorytellers.org/portraits 2022 to get more information and to purchase tickets. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Griffin, we have a division in Coumba called Tattletales, right?
Cool.
This is our youth division. How important is the youth division of Tattletales to not just your production, but any Coumba production?
That's where we have to tap in for the next generation.
Yes.
We have to tap into that. And I'm a firm believer that I want them to be well-rounded. I want them to tell stories. But this year, they are going to do another part of the program that they've never done before.
Okay.
And this is libation.
Okay.
Libations, for your audience who may not know what that is, it's a ritual where we pour clear water on the earth or in a plant, and we recognize the contributions of our ancestors by calling their name.
Yes.
And so this year, the Tattletales will be our libations.
Okay.
And so that they will get a more well-rounded approach to, well, I'm just going to tell stories. I want to tell a poem. Right. No, you're going to find out how important the ancestors are to you. And to make it closer to home for them, each one of them, there will be two of them, they have submitted the name of an ancestor that they knew and was close to them. So they're just not up there calling names and it don't mean nothing. Right. You know, Uncle Joe. Oh, yeah. You know, so they have a vested interest in it. Yeah. So I just want to see them be involved in all aspects of the production and let them take it where it leads.
Right. So then in 2 or 3 years, she'll be producing.
Yes.
Gotcha. You got to keep that fresh young energy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we've pretty much gone through your history. We talked about the 22nd annual Historical Black Portraits, which I really, really hope our listening audience checks out. It's really a great experience to see this art form of oratory communication or storytelling and the different styles that the different people have. It's amazing when it comes together. So please go to the website, KaumbaStorytellers.org/portraits 2022. You can purchase tickets. If you don't want to purchase tickets and actually attend the event, you can make a donation. It will be greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. Now, before we go, Queen Storyteller, you mentioned you're a new author and you have a new book coming out. What is the name of your book and how can we go about getting that?
Okay, well, thank you for mentioning our book. It is called, I co-authored this book with my friend and storyteller, Carsey Mason, and it's called Voicing Our Stories. And I mentioned a little bit about it, but not so much in terms of calling out the book name itself, but it's basically honoring the griot tradition in spirit and in truth. You can find it on Amazon. It's $15. And what we have done is done a collection of and put them in different sections of the book. There is a love story. There's a story about healing, how the sound of something can heal the body, how the consciousness of someone can make all things right, how breath is life and life is God. Okay. And there's another story that teaches us about you, probably in the 70s, 80s, maybe, I'm not really sure, how we started wearing a lot of African attire. We just wore it because it was pretty,
Right.
but we had an affinity to it, but we didn't know what it was. So I researched that. I researched that attire, and I learned what the different colors meant. And I learned that everybody could not make that. A certain group of people, just like I was telling you about the rice. The women did the rice, the men did the sewing.
Okay.
For the cloth, and they did it for the king. And they could not have one king. If you were King Vincent and King Kenny was there, you all could not have the same threads. It had to be different. It had to be distinct. So when we saw you or your clothing, that was identified with you.
Okay.
And your tradition. And, those are the kinds of things that I like to research. Where did this come from? How did we do this? And why is this important? Because we love color.
Yes.
But sometimes we've been, that is just too loud. We are not into bland. Okay?
No, we're not.
We are not. And that is good. That is good. We are not into bland. So these are the things that help us when we know our history. We're proud of our history. We no longer are ashamed of how we have been made to feel.
Right. Yes.
So it is what happened to us that makes us feel. It's not what's wrong with us.
Right.
It's happened to us.
Yes, I like that.
That makes us feel the way we do. And we have to be patient with each of us because everybody is not on the same wavelength. It's just not, So we have to be patient with each other.
You're absolutely correct. And
so buy our book.
And I think that's a great way to end the show, ma'am. Those kind and thoughtful and intelligent words that you just gave about being patient with each other. It's like they always say everybody's fighting their own battles every day. You don't know what a person's going through. And in the name of God, just love each other.
Yeah.
Love each other, be patient, be understanding, and we can get our community back to where it should be, back to where it was taken from. How about that?
Yes, that's true. And to top it off, we have to be patient with ourselves.
Yes.
I find that I am sometimes not patient with myself, and I have to sit back because it's as long as I will be on the earth, this will be a learning experience. And I feel like service is the part that I play, that I owe for being on the earth. That's a price that I owe. I owe service for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, you give back, because when you think of the ancestors, they knew us not, but they knew us.
Yes.
And so we are here, and we have to honor them and learn and research and grow and just feel good about who you are.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you very much, Miss Brenda.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Queen Storyteller, aka the griot, the shaman, whatever you want to call her. She is absolutely wonderfully amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, we're going to get ready to end our show. Again, the website for the 22nd Annual Historical Black Portraits is kaumbastorytellers.org/portraits22. We're asking, starting with $10 donations, but you're more than welcome to give more. It would be greatly appreciated. please check out the show. It's a learning experience for adults. It's a learning experience for children. It's a learning experience for the whole family. Okay, so thank you again, Miss Griffin, aka Queen Storyteller.
Thank you.
And before we get out of here, I have to do my scholars of the week. Okay, my scholars of the week for this week go to the students in Boston, New York City, and Chicago. There are a couple of other more cities, but those were the major cities. All of these students formed they had a walkout protest on Friday, January the 14th. The students in those cities, they left their classrooms to demand that local leaders do more to help reduce the spread of COVID in schools by enforcing a 2-week period for remote learning, sufficient technology for remote learning, and they're even asking for proper PPE for teachers and the dissolution of some standardized testing.
Oh, wow.
They were doing great up until the end of standardized testing. I don't know how the government gonna feel about that, but I love what they're doing. I love that these students are standing up for themselves and for fighting. They're becoming young activists, fighting for the things that they believe in, and they're even fighting for protection equipment for their teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are being mistreated in those situations. So I just had to shout these children out. And when the children went out, they were chanting things like "No more oppression, changes in session," and they were shouting "Si se puede," which is Spanish for "Yes, we can."
All right.
Get that from Mr. Obama.
All right.
Shout out to these students in Boston, New York City, and Chicago, and wherever else they stage these protests. I think it's very important for these students to speak up and speak out about things that they are passionate about. So shout out to them. Once again, before we get out of here, thank you to my guest, Ms. Brenda Griffin, aka Queen Storyteller, and thank you to my producer Penny and her assistant, Miss Vivian, for their production and their work in making WCEG Network come together. Shout out to my Kaumba Storytellers of Georgia family. Shout out to my WCEG family. Shout out to our listening audience. Thank you for tuning in again today. We will see you next month. Peace and blessings in 2022. I am your Chief Empowerment Officer, Vincent Cheeks. Have a blessed day, week, and year.